Welcome to the Limitless Entrepreneur Podcast, your weekly dose of strategies and mindset tools to build a business in alignment with your purpose and get you playing a bigger game. I'm your host, Nicole. Hello and welcome to the Limitless Entrepreneur Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Nicole. We are here together. It is a new year. I am super excited for 2023. And today I want to talk to you about a really important piece of your human design chart. Now, the human design chart, obviously, we know it tells us who we are meant to be. It tells us who we are not meant to be. And when we stop trying to be who we think we should be, that frees us up to be who we are. That gets us operating in alignment. That gets us operating in flow. That is what truly builds confidence. It builds the most important type of confidence, which is just complete and total trust in ourselves, that we are being led, that we will know the answer. Even if we don't know the answer, we'll know the direction, and that we have something that's inside of us that we can trust. It's really powerful stuff. But there's another element of the human design chart that we're going to dive into today. And this can take your human design journey to a whole other level. I've been working with this with my private clients. I've been working with this inside the group coaching program that I run called the Limitless Entrepreneur. And this is in-depth work. So what we're going to talk about is the arrows in the human design chart. So if you run your human design chart, you get these two arrows on either side of the chart, on the either side of your head. You have arrows, they're either pointing left or right. And you have two on the left and two on the right side of like the head. Or if you're just looking at one with just the centers, it's the head and the ajna center. On either side of them, you're going to have two arrows. And this is where we get deep into differentiation. This is where we get really into, so when you see like twin charts, or you see people who are born right around the same time and their charts look almost exactly the same, this is how we get down into true differentiation of how people are really different, how we operate differently, because what the arrows show us are, we call them the variables, because it is the great variable between us. I might see somebody's chart that looks very, very similar to somebody else's. We've seen twin charts with this, where twins born just a few minutes apart in the same place, that they have the exact same chart, same channels, same centers, same gates, same everything, because nothing moved in those few minutes. But what we do get is these really, really sub-variable changes, which are these arrows, where they will have a different set of variables, maybe even one different, which shows how they are different. And this is something that twins can feel, that people that they know is different about them, but no one can see. So we're getting into really the stuff that makes us tick, the stuff that makes us make something work and something not work. So we're going to talk today about what those arrows actually mean and how you can use them, what you do with them. Why is it important to know them? Why is it important to know what differentiates you? Well, again, what we're getting into, and I wanted to do this episode at the beginning of 2023, like at the start of the year, because I want you going into 2023, knowing that the most important thing for you to know is what your way is, what your process is, what your correct way of thinking, behaving, feeling, operating is in the world. Because when you know that, then you're no longer swayed by what you read on Instagram or even what a coach tells you. That you can be open to listening to things, you can take them in, but what you choose to action is passed through your authority, through what you know about you, rather than reading something in a book and hearing that this is how it worked for this person and they're telling you that it's the way. No, it's their way. And now you know your way. And that's the goal with this show, is helping you find your way and have complete and total trust in yourself. So what these arrows show us are our cognitive architecture. And then if you notice beneath the arrows, there are going to be numbers underneath, and you might see triangles and circles, or you may not see those. You might just see numbers underneath, where you'll see like an arrow and then you'll see a 2 or a 3 next to each other. And then, or some other combination of numbers between 1 and 6. That gives us an even more in-depth view, and we're getting into what we call tone and color. So thinking about just how you can have a sentence and the tone of the sentence gives such nuance and can change the meaning of it. Such is the same with the elements of your design. The tone of it, the color of it shifts the entire expression of it. And in turn, it shifts the entire expression of you. So let's talk about what we use this for. So why is it important to know what the arrows in your human design mean and what they're saying about you? Well, I use them for productivity. I'm a 5/1. So most of what I do is very much passed through like, is this practical or is it not? What can we do with this? That's kind of the question that I'm not even consciously asking. I'm just, that is what I'm searching for in everything. And when I say productivity, I want to be really clear what I mean by productivity. I do not mean productivity for the sake of doing more work. I do not mean how can we do as much work as humanly possible. It's not time management that I'm talking about. I'm talking about what I refer to or aligned productivity. So how can you be in aligned action and not be stuck? Productivity to me means not being stuck. It does not mean that I'm working 8 or 9 hours every single day and being able to do that without stopping. That's not my definition of productivity. My definition of productivity is to be able to do anything that I want to accomplish, to be able to know what is correct for me to do or what I should outsource. What are the correct actions for me to take? And how can I do what I need to do in as little time and with as little resistance as possible? How can I be in flow without sacrificing the things that I want to create and the things that I want to do and the things that I want to accomplish? So it's something that this is super cheesy, but I think that it helps to understand it. What I believe in is flowductivity, being productive in flow. And we actually have a little guide that we created for you. If you go to nicolelano.me/productivity, you can get that free guide where I go through some of my favorite tips in human design that don't require like a huge amount of explanation. These quick tips, the quickest things that you can do to get you into flow using your human design. And we have that all in that free guide for you. So please go to nicolelano.me/productivity and you can download that guide for free. If you're interested in learning how to work with your energy, being efficient and getting things done. That guide will be a huge resource for you. So let's break down how these arrows help you find your flowductivity. So first, let me break down. I'm going to let you know what each of the arrows means, what the theme of it is, and what we use it for. So if we start on the left side, if we're looking at the left side of the chart, you have 2 arrows. Again, they'll either point left or right, depending on your chart. But the 2 arrows there, if we start with the top left arrow, this is what we call the body side of the chart. This is the unconscious side. So I want you to think about it that way, where this is really looking at these variables, your cognition, from a sense of what is happening under the hood, what is unconscious to you. And why is this important to know? Well, if it's unconscious to you, but it wants to be expressed, or it's being triggered because what you're consciously doing is triggering a part of you that's unconscious to maybe not be in flow, to freak out and twist you all up, well, that's going to really lock you up. And you're not going to be productive. You're going to feel stuck a lot of the time. And we don't want that. So even just understanding that there's part of you that's unconscious, that's operating, that wants to operate a certain way, that's nurtured a certain way. And that's really what we're talking about here, that it's nurtured a certain way. And it's, but, by that virtue, it's also triggered a certain way. It's not nurtured. It is broken down. It's stressed by operating incorrectly, or by us trying to be the way that the world told us to be, or being in situations that are not nurturing to us. And this is basically, so what the arrows help us understand is, again, nervous system regulation. Because when we're talking about the unconscious, we're really talking about our nervous system. When we're talking about being triggered, if your nervous system is all twisted up and is in fight, flight, or freeze mode, if you're spending any time there, then you're going to burn energy. You're going to burn time. Things are going to take you longer to do. It's going to feel awful. And you're probably going to need to rest quite a bit. If you even get out of that state, if you continually trigger your nervous system to be in fight, flight, or freeze, then you're probably going to find that life feels really hard. And so the arrows really help us to understand what triggers that for us, what sends our body into freak out mode unconsciously to us. And we're wondering, why can't I just get this done? Why can't I just do this? Why can't I just show up for myself? So this is a huge part of it. This is a big part of what I do to help create an environment and to create a personal environment for us, both external and internal, that nurtures us, that helps me and my clients see how they can be kind of gliding with life and still get things done. So the first part, the first arrow, the top left arrow, is going to be, this is what is associated with your brain, your actual physical brain. So not your mind, not your thinking mind, it's your brain. So this is the actual anatomical part of it, because we're talking about the body side. And what this tells us is this arrow, it's labeled digestion. So digestion is about digesting life, how we digest food and how we digest life. So it's very much, how do we feed our brain so that the brain functions well? That's the digestion part of the food part. And then how do we take in information? What's the way that we are taking in information? And I'm going to run through all of the arrows and I'll come back to this one. But I want to tell you what they all mean. So what we're doing here by looking at the body design, and we're looking at the digestion arrow. The digestion arrow is telling us, how do we take in information? How do we digest life? How do we digest information? How do we digest food? If we aren't doing this part properly, if we aren't nurturing ourselves properly, then we are in a stressed state. Our body, our brain, our physical brain isn't relaxed. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. And for this particular one, if you have the arrow facing left, I'll do this one. We'll give you the specifics around this one. But if the arrow points to the left, then you're going to have a more focused and active, is really how we're looking at this, an active brain. It's a busy brain. Your brain is moving. Your brain needs activity. Your brain is always active. It's always searching for something. Now, if your arrow points right, that means your brain is passive. It's not active. It's not churning things out. It's not moving all the time. So this was eye-opening for me, understanding my right brain. And the way that you might experience this, mine faces right, my arrow goes to the right. The arrow facing right for this particular arrow really means that we're not meant to focus on taking in information. Whenever I felt like studying in school, I never studied. If I showed up to school and I listened and I was just there, I absorbed everything I needed to. I always took in a ton of information. And I remember, my sister had to work really hard. She had to study hard in school, and it used to make her mad that I really didn't. I didn't study. And honestly, when I studied, it never felt like, if I was trying to focus on something and if I was trying to take it in a more deliberate way, where I was going to like intentionally study, I felt like I just never felt like I was really taking anything in. I felt like it was sort of just, I was glazing over it. And when I let go of that, and certainly since I learned about this through my design, now I no longer do that at all. I don't take copious notes when I am listening to a speaker. I don't I don't feel like I need to listen word for word. I'm actually absorbing everything. I'm absorbing everything that's being said. I'm absorbing the frequency of things being said. I'm understanding and taking in things at a very, very deep level because my arrow faces to the right. Now, if your arrow faces to the left, it is going to be a little bit more about you actively taking in information. And the key with this is really just understanding those two differentiations. Am I someone who just takes in things kind of easily and subconsciously kind of? Or am I somebody who needs to actively dive into things? That doesn't mean that I don't love to consume information. I'm a one line. I love to consume information. I am always learning. I just learned to stop making myself feel like I needed to sit down and study and be focused on it. I'm actually better off if I'm taking in the whole room, the whole experience, even moving my body or moving around or just laying down and listening, but without really being focused on what I'm trying to take in. I take it in passively. And that's really what the right arrow means. It means passive. So it's very much feminine energy versus masculine energy. When we move down from that arrow, the arrow below it is environment. And this tells you what type of environment is the most nurturing to you. Where do you belong? What environment, so physical, external, is going to set your nervous system at ease? What's going to make you feel safe and nurtured and held and like you can accomplish anything? Your environment is going to be shown through that arrow, and you're going to get a specific type of environment. For me, mine is mountains. And my mountains environment is really about having a perspective. It's really about having a higher perspective, looking at things from the top looking down. I also physically being in a mountain environment, either in the mountains or even on a high floor or someplace where I have kind of a bird's eye view of things, it immediately sends me into just a complete and total relaxed mode. Totally relaxed. So we use that arrow to sort of figure out what is the correct environment for you. What environment, and this is where the experiment comes in. You play with it. I learned that high floors could do a very similar thing to me as like a mountain environment. I needed to be up high. I needed to be in that perch. I needed to feel like I could look out over things. That's how it is expressed for me. And then if I do get into a mountain environment, like I've always been drawn to the mountains. When I go to the mountains, like there is just this like, I'm here. Oh, it just feels so good here. And that nurtures my nervous system. Immediately, I feel like I'm at home. And then if we go to the right side of the chart, then you get another arrow at the top right. That arrow is about focus. That arrow is about your mind. So paired with the brain on the other side, that arrow is telling us what your mind wants to do. Is it going to be focused on things, or is it going to be more of a wide angle view? Is it going to just sort of intuitively know what to focus on, or is it going to want to be very, very focused? Is it going to want to be focused on a detail? So this is how the strategic mind is going to be more strategic focused rather than open if it's facing left. If it's facing left, it's always going to be more strategic. So do you have a strategic mind, or do you have a more open mind? Do you have less of a fixed way of seeing things and your mind working? So they all work together. So we have the different meanings of each of these arrows, and then there's the combination of all four of them together. And it's understanding how the flow works for you that makes this so powerful. So the bottom right arrow, that is that arrow, we use that a lot for manifestation. We call it perspective or view. And again, we're talking about focused view, or we're talking about peripheral. Is it going to be, and when we talk about it in terms of manifestation, if you have a left facing arrow, you have more of a strategic focused view. It's going to be focused. And you're really thinking about details. You're noticing the details. You're noticing every little thing. So with manifestation, we always say, like, focus on the details that you want, because that's how your brain, that's how your mind is processing and taking things in. It's how it wants to do it. So don't fight it. Do it that way. Start looking at very detailed things about what you want. You want to go on a vacation? Okay, where? What flights will you take? Where will you go? What will it look like? What hotel will you stay in? Those details are important. Now, if your arrow faces to the right, then you have the wider perspective. It's peripheral, we call it. It's much more about the feeling. It's about the frequency of things. It's not really about the detail. It's about being open with that perspective. It's about taking in all the things around it. So that right facing arrow there, when we talk about it in terms of manifestation, that's going to be much more about the feeling that you get. The details can change because you really don't care. My arrow faces right. And the details can sometimes trip me up because I'm so unsure about them that my brain just doesn't work that way. My mind doesn't want to focus on a detail. It's like, we just want it to be like this. So I want the house renovated. Like what? Kind of this style, not like it needs to be this and this and this and these details, and the cabinets need to be this color and this needs to be this color, and that it just needs to feel real to me. Those details don't necessarily matter unless you're just adding to the feeling. It's the feeling that matters. It's the way that I feel, because ultimately I would be happy with the details changing because I'm not focused on them. I'm focused on how it feels when I walk in the room, for that example. But for other people, the details will matter. If I don't get exactly what I want, I'm not going to be happy. So this is how we use it for manifestation. It's actually meant for several other things, but it's how it sort of has gotten co-opted to be used as a manifestation tool, that particular arrow. So when you put all of these arrows together, you get the way that your brain, your physical brain works and your mind works. So your physical brain, and then the personality, who you think you are, the way your mind wants to function. Now, learning how to work with these, whether they are different or how they work together in conjunction, starts to create space and starts to create flow. Because sometimes what we're doing is we're trying to do it another way. You're trying to do it the way that you've been told, but not the way that actually works for you. And then when we go to the bottom arrows, this is really about your life path. And this is about the way to set the stage for you to have an external environment, the way that you process and take in your external environment, and how to set that up so that you are in the most calm and relaxed state, so that you are able to perform because you are in the correct environment for you. Because calm and relaxed might be moving for some of you. It might not be. That's why sometimes you hear people that are like, just lay in bed or get in a bathtub and write. And people are like, I literally can't do that. Nothing will make me feel less productive. And then other people are like, that's how I love to work. This is why. Because there's something about your design that's telling you that it's either correct or incorrect for you to relax, to receive, to lean back. So this is how I use these. I mean, I use these where every single chart, there's a different combination. Some people might have, on the top left facing left, and the bottom, the environment faces to the right, and then their mind faces to the right, and then their perspective on the bottom right turns to the left. That combination is different than even if one of those arrows was flipped. But what you can start to notice is, do you have more pointing left or pointing right? Do you have 3 arrows pointing to the left then you're probably going to be a little bit more of a strategic active person, depending on where those arrows are. But in general, if you have 3 left pointing arrows, you're going to be more strategic, more focused, more active, because that's what the left arrow means. And if your arrows point to the right, if you have more arrows pointing to the right, if you have 3 like I do, or if you have 4, or if you even have 2, depending on where the placement is, but if you have 3 arrows pointing to the right, then it's probably not going to be as much doing for you. The output is going to be different for you. It's going to be more about receiving. It's going to be more about being called. It's going to be more about people seeing you potentially as a resource, about you not really jumping head into things, but waiting for invitations or people to recognize you or to pull you into something. You will have people coming to you more than having to go out and seek them. Both of these things, one, you might be listening and you're like, oh, I wish I had that, or I wish I had this one, or I have this, and oh, that sounds great. They each come with their challenges. They each come with their thing. And it's learning how to embrace what you are, not change it. Work with it and trust that this is right for you. Because for some people, leaning back and waiting and putting out the frequency of, I want this person to come to me, and attracting, that's going to be something that works faster for you. It'll be the path that's faster for you because you're designed that way. And then for some of you, it's going to be, you might feel like attraction never really worked. People were never really finding you. Well, then it might be that your design is meant to be more active, a more active participant in bringing things to you, going out and killing the meat for dinner versus being the one who's sitting there going to prepare it once it comes home. This is the difference between the left and the right, and starting to understand where the left arrows and the right arrows sit in your chart, and how and what the colors are underneath and how they behave together can really change the way that you operate. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that this gave you some insight into what those arrows mean and whether you are more left or more right, and how you can see that play out. And I encourage you to download that free productivity guide that I have for you. That's at nicolelano.me/productivity. And that will get you, that's going to give you some of my favorite tips and easy little things for you to digest and start to implement in your life and start to play with in your experiment. I hope you download it. And if you haven't run your chart already, or if you run a chart where you don't see the arrows, please go to our website at nicolelano.me/chart. And you can download a free advanced chart there. So it gives you those arrows without you having to pay for everything. Some of the other sites, in order to get the arrows, you have to pay for a pro subscription, but we'll cover you there for free. So please go to the site and run your chart there if you need those arrows on your chart and you're not getting them where you're currently downloading your chart from. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this conversation and for tuning into the show and being a loyal listener. Please, if you love the show, please share it on Instagram. Take a little screenshot, tag me. I'm at Nicole Lano Official. I'd love to know what you think. Also, leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast so that we can get the word out, and maybe they bump us up and say, people really love this show. Let's show some more people about it. So we appreciate you if you leave us a review over there. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next episode. And remember, you are only limited by the limitations that you accept. And when you stop accepting those limitations, that is when you become limitless. So go out there and be limitless, everyone. I'll see you soon. If you loved this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast. And if you want to stay in touch with us, we would love to have you as a part of our Facebook community, Practical Manifestors. It's a community for process-driven women looking for clear and actionable steps to embodying a life of wealth and alignment. Join us at Practical Manifestors in Facebook, or go to www.innerceogroup.com.